What's up, cycling junkies? We're back with a world championship show. One of the coolest interviews ever today with Quinn Simmons, junior world champion from Team USA, and Magnus Sheffield, bronze medalist from Team USA. These two guys put on an absolute stunning show about a week and a half ago at Worlds. If you haven't seen it, you need to shut this podcast off, turn it on, and watch that freaking race, and then come back and listen to the podcast because that race is so fun to watch. It should be the biggest story in American cycling right now is how talented these two riders are. They are unbelievable talents, and they're both coming out of the US. They both have a similar style. They're both these sort of classic style, hard-nosed riders who just go out and just eat up hard, long courses in bad weather. I mean, they're everything that you want in an American bike racer, and these two kids are coming. It was amazing, man. So amazing to watch them race, and so cool to get to talk to them for an hour about the race and about their experiences racing and about where they're going. Just an absolute pleasure. So before any more rambling from me, I'm just gonna roll you right into this one. I hope you really enjoy listening to the two best juniors in the world, Quinn Simmons and Magnus Sheffield.
1, 2, 3, 4.
You'll never go out on a training ride and dig that deep.
Awesome. We won gold.
They're life rides.
I'm like, dude, I'm still figuring this out.
Lose sight of the fact that it's whoever goes faster.
This isn't a road race. This isn't a mountain bike race.
The sensei of sprint, Todd Desky.
My eyes are coming out of my head. Just get in here.
We are on with 2/3 of the Junior World Championship podium, and I don't even know where to start, guys. It's been a week and a half, and I'm still just like, damn, like that was absolutely historic, unbelievable. I don't even know how to put it into words. Like how are you guys at this point after a week and a half from what you guys just accomplished? Like what's going on in the last week and a half or so for you guys?
For me at least, it's still been pretty crazy. Hasn't really quite sunk in yet. Every time looking up and seeing the jersey hanging on the wall has been a life dream, and it still doesn't quite feel real. And I think the way we did it is going to take a while longer to sink in too, because I think that's going to be a ride that people are going to remember forever.
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, I was fortunate to get on NBC Gold, so I've been like every day I've been watching part of it. See, my training is so short that I can do multiple training sessions for your one race. It's the advantage of being a master's guy in New York State in the fall, right? So I'm like, well, I'm just going to watch this thing while I'm on my trainer. And then but I will say, I mean, just, man, like you said, I mean, the way you guys pulled that race off it's an epic, man. No doubt about it. Now, was that kind of how much of that was to plan coming in, and how much of it developed as you kind of saw what was happening?
I would say that was probably about pretty much 100% exactly how we wanted it to happen.
Well, that's about as good as it gets. Right?
Yeah, I mean, like, it was just mind-blowing. I was watching it again last night and going through it, and it was just, like, the whole time, it's just mind-blowing that it's amazing enough to win. It's amazing enough to have a guy take third and win, but to do it in the way that you did it, where you control the race and just, I mean, it was unbelievable. It was one of the most exciting races I've ever watched, period. And then to watch it in a World Championships with two Americans doing it was just, it was unreal. You've had so many people who've said you guys rode like a pro team. I mean, like, as you're out there doing it, are you realizing how big this is, like, during that race, or is this so ingrained in what you do that it's just you're out there just sort of executing?
At least. Oh, go ahead.
So for me, it just felt like I tried to, going into the race, I just tried to think of it like another race. I felt like my nerves were like, felt like I wasn't too nervous going into the race because we've kind of raced that way. And previously, like when we were in Switzerland at Rublin, and also when we raced in Kaiser, we pretty much did the same thing, kind of dominating the field and going solo from far out and just controlling how the dynamics of the race. So I think going to the World Championship, we had this master plan that we executed perfectly, but I don't think it was too much of a surprise, really. What kind of like in the moment, but it was more like after the fact, looking back at it, it's like, geez, like we really did that.
Yeah, for sure. And it's like, and you guys rolled into this. I mean, this isn't, I mean, a lot of people aren't necessarily always tuning into all the races you guys are doing. As a national team outside of your respective trade teams that you ride for. So you guys have been hitting a lot of these bigger races. So you've seen some of the other guys around. They've seen you as well. So it wasn't like all of a sudden you showed up in England and everybody's like, oh, I don't know who these guys are. I mean, people had some idea. And you said like you've been riding this strategy with the national team now for at least a few races, right? So this was no surprise to people out there going like, wow, who are these guys, right?
Yeah, I think going in, myself and Magnus too, I don't think we had been outside the top 3 in a stage of like 9 race days leading in. And then just a week before, from 60K out, we kind of just rode away from everyone on accident. So we knew what we were capable of and knew we were the team to watch and to take over and race the way we did. And I think it was probably the best way we could have done it.
Yeah, and I think, it certainly gives you the confidence, right? I mean, you guys are, you know your fitness and everything's coming together when you can say something like you did, like we rode away from people on accident, right? Because that does usually like I can't ride away from people on purpose.
Yeah, it's a pretty good story, that race too, because the first day of Kaiser was basically a mini Flanders for us, and only I think 20K into the day, we had 70K left, and we'd ride away on the first climb. And I tell Magnus, I'm like, we should probably wait. So we sit up, we sit up, and I think we wait about like 7 more K, and then we kind of do it again on the next climb completely again. And I just looked down, I'm like, okay, we're going to this.
Right.
And yeah, that ended up being like pretty eye-opening to what we could do together, and I think that race there really set us up for Worlds.
So is that really what made you so aggressive so early on? Was that having that confidence going in and going, okay, we could really just put it to these guys and just continue to split the field until we're ready to make our move?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, go ahead.
I think it kind of comes down to like, so when Quinn and I race against each other on trade teams, it's like we kind of neutralize each other. I think when we actually get to race together on the national team, we we can use it to our benefit. So it's like I'll rip it into the climb, and then Quinn will attack going over, and that's really where we can just put a ton of hurt on the field. And I think the best way to describe it is just that we're unstoppable when we have the two of us together.
Well, it certainly appeared that way. And for those of us that don't get to see you guys do this all the time and don't, understand it like you guys do, as a fan, to sit there and watch it is just jaw dropping. It was just unbelievable. And then to watch the whole thing play out, and then the end, and then for you to come in third, and for the announcers to talk about, the praise that they're lauding on you guys tactically. It was almost like we won, like the U.S. won twice. It was like Magnus is the man of the race, and Quinn wins the title. It was like you guys won 2 in the same race. And for those of us that don't get to see it, it was unreal. Can you start to take us through sort of how it plays out early, and then kind of the breakdown of the race as you guys remember it? Because I'm curious to see how that lines up with like what we see from a television perspective.
Well, from the start, Magnus here doesn't like to ride very far back in the group, as I think you saw. So he was pretty much on the front. I was more sitting at the back, kind of watching things. And really the first 2 hours, I can't say much into the first climb because I was pretty much last wheel, at least. But Magnus here seemed, from what I've heard, was probably pulling the whole time.
So like from pretty much kilometer zero is like, it was fairly fast. I wouldn't say it was like as aggressive as some of the other like Belgian races that we've done. It was a little calmer, but there was also like a crash that some of the got caught up in. And so from there, it kind of mellowed out again, but the pace just never really stopped. But I think so when you see me on the front, it's like I'm going hard, but it's not like I'm going at my limit. So it doesn't necessarily feel like I'm killing myself, but it's mostly that I'm just trying to stay out of the danger. And also, if there are any moves that get away, I can go and sit on them. And then if, say, we get like 30 seconds, or I would hope we wouldn't get a minute, but that would force some of the other teams to have to chase. And then Quinn would get the free ride up to me. And so then we would have numbers if that were to happen. But the first like 30-ish K was mostly just, there were a few moves that went up the road, but everything just kept on going together, kept on coming back together until about like 35-ish K. There was like a, I want to 6 or 8 man group that got, I think, like a minute and a half going to that first climb at 40 something K. And that's when Michael came up behind me and also Gianni, and they're like, and I just told them like, this is where we need to start lining it up. And then Quinn made his way up to the front with us, and that's when we started to bring down that gap. Michael led into it, and then I came around him once it started to get a little bit steeper. And then Quinn was right on my wheel, as you probably saw on the TV. And then we pretty much brought that break back from a minute and a half to about like 20 seconds. And then I just kept the pace really high the entire time on the climb. And we like, the goal was to try to split the field as much as possible and just try like shed as many guys. Going over the top, like, I want to say I was a little disappointed we didn't get rid of more guys. Like, we were hoping to only have like the group be about 20 or 30 guys, but I think in reality it was more like 50 or 40-ish. Then like the pace kind of calmed down a little bit. Guys just kind of sat up and started eating some food. And then through the feed zone, I picked up the pace again just to try see if I could catch any guys off guard. And that's where it kind of, the race got strung out again. And then there was the second climb of the day is where we also went to the front and started just up the pace. And that's where on the descent, Michael, Quinn, and I were able to gap the field on the descent. And that's where you see Quinn go. And that's when Quinn and I got in that the winning move that he attacked out of.
Yeah, Quinn, that was amazing. Like, as you're yelling and captaining the team, like, what's going through your head right there as you're yelling at these guys and you got these workhorses just pulling you through?
Yeah, I think I didn't really even have to say that much to them throughout the race. Everyone was pretty dialed, but we Matthew set a really good tempo over that climb, and then on the descent, us big boys kind of just rolled away. And when you see this field splinting behind with a steep climb coming up in a couple of K, it's a pretty good time to ride. And, you know, I just wanted to make sure we took advantage of that. And I think it worked out okay.
It certainly did.
So it's and it was when you guys are rolling those climbs like that, when you're rolling like 400 watts. I mean, it's not rolling like, hey, we're just, I'm like, me, if I'm rolling a climb, it's not nearly that 400 watts. I'll tell you that right now. But
watts go up to 400, Todd?
What's that?
I said watts go up to 400.
Yeah, I know, exactly, right? And it's like, but you know, and when you watch the coverage too, you know it's hard because you guys look very, very calm and relaxed, but guys are coming out the back. I mean, there's a bit of a comet trail going on back there where guys are just starting to pop, and on the steeper ones, guys are traversing the hill because they're going out the back. So it's you guys are rolling, and I think the other impressive part when you're doing that is the other guys on Team USA are all there too. Like, everybody was there and everybody was taking these stabs, and when you guys finally got that separation into that winning group, I saw at least 2 of the other guys on Team USA just basically covering those moves. and right there breaking up the rhythm and just ready to pounce on it if they needed to, which was, I mean, just double down on an impressive team effort that was going on out there with you guys.
Yeah, I'd say it was really cool. We got some young guys like Matthew there, and to watch him really drop everyone on the climb. And I think next year he's going to be one of the best guys, and for sure a favorite for the climbing race in Switzerland. So to see him there, and then Michael pulling hard too, it's pretty fun. I'm sitting like eighth wheel. The whole team's lined up on the front. It's just, you don't see that in junior races, and I think it's cool that we were able to do it.
Yeah, and one of the other things that was kind of impressed me too is like, so you guys get this group of 8 going, and Quinn's got it dialed. He's eager. He's yelling. I don't think Magnus, you don't ever change your expression the whole time. You look like you're just like you're like me on an endurance ride. You're just kind of riding and looking like you're just doing your thing, and you're completely calm. And the Italians go into like panic mode. So if you haven't seen the coverage, watch the full coverage because those guys go complete panic mode back there. I mean, they got their guys over there. I mean, as far as riding as a team, they did really well. And they were holding you guys at like that 20-some seconds for a while. I think they even got back to like 15 at one point. Did you guys kind of start to think, man, those guys are coming. What's plan B if they catch? You're just going to just lather, rinse, repeat, go the next, in the circuits and then just start lighting up on steep hills? What's plan B if the Italians come back on that break that you guys got going?
I knew we were safe once we hit the circuit because on a circuit like that, running full gas solo, it's going to be really hard for a group to bring it back.
Is it just because of the technical nature of the turns and the wet and all that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The turns and the wet and this on a steep climb, being in a group, there's no advantage. There's no advantage when you're aero tucking. You're no advantage in a turn. So there's really only 4 minutes of the course that you have an advantage being in a group, and that was into a headwind. And with junior aren't strong enough to really push into a headwind and make a difference anyways. So once we made it onto the circuits, I was feeling pretty confident with our chances.
Right.
And then the other thing was obviously, so it was pretty much a descent after that, after the second climb in the course. So we're all doing like 120 RPM. So it's like once we developed that gap on the climb, it was like, if we keep on going just like as hard as we can, it's not like the peloton's going to be able to catch us, because with the junior gears, everyone's just spun out, and it's like when everyone's just going as hard as they can, it just stays the same pretty much.
Right. Yeah, there is that kind of that little bit of that leveling that happens. You get a little bit more of that when you have the junior gears rolling, because on those fast downhills, it's everybody's just you're just, that's it. You're coasting and that's all you got. There's not much advantage. And if it's wet and twisty, nobody in the field wants to be close to each other to get enough of an advantage off each other and come through. It's not like a long 6% straightaway road where you can start to pick up speed by rotating through, even coasting. You kind of can't, because you got all those chicanes and stuff that they were coming up. What was your guys' thoughts when you're hitting that net? I think the Spaniard was he was doing my move, sit on the back, and I think he was in survival mode. But
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I dropped back and talked to him, and it was pretty clear doing too hot. We would not have let him got away with that if he was riding good, but I could tell he was pretty much wrecked.
Right.
So that wasn't really an issue.
At that point, you can yell at him all you want, right? But it's like, well, dude, I can't pull. So
yeah,
it's like, he's a ticking time bomb when you get to the steep stuff. So
it was kind of the same deal with also the Czech kid, and then also the British Lewis. He obviously he was highly motivated to try be in that break. Obviously, it's because it's his hometown race and all his friends and family are watching. He was also a super good guy to have in the break because he was able to put it in some big pulls. But also in the end, he just didn't quite have the snap.
Right. Yeah, he was starting to, you guys were emptying his tank just with that, I think the constant pressure, and he wanted to come through. And so Do you think maybe it was a little bit of his downfall that he wanted to come through as strong as he did and didn't save any matches? But it didn't look like he was going to have the gas to go with you anyways. And when you really lit up the attack, and Magnus definitely took a look around, was really cognizant, which is really notable. I mean, that you just looked around and were like, it kind of, I had the sense like you were saying, okay, which one of you guys are going to try to go after him because you're going to cover, and they were just kind of like, it isn't going to be me today. Right?
Yeah, at that point, Quinn and I had talked before then, and he told me, he's like, all right, this is my time. I'm going to go. And I thought like that was like 100% the right move, because the gap was definitely closing there. And Quinn just took full advantage of the gap we had already established, put even more time on it. So I think that was kind of like a funny dynamic within the race, because it's like the race was coming all back together, but then like right as we got in eyesight, Quinn attacked, and then it like yo-yoed out again. So I think like within the peloton, I think they were kind of confused. I don't think most of them actually realized that Quinn had attacked.
Right.
I think like the Italian who got finished second in an interview after the race, he thought he was going for the win at one point. He didn't realize that Quinn had gone there.
Yeah, and I was wondering that when I was watching that, is like, because they were in that panic full flight, and as I mentioned, and then all of a sudden, like Quinn's gone, and he's like almost out of sight because it's turning up and down, and you're kind of riding this tempo, and I think they're kind of like, we got all those guys back, and you guys don't have radios, so they don't have any director screen or anything. They're going like, no, you got to keep going. It's like they're like, oh yeah, we caught everybody in the break, and it's easy to lose track of somebody. And meanwhile, the seconds are accumulating because, man, all of a sudden it just goes out, and those guys are just sitting. They were just happy to sit behind you.
Right, and in all honesty, like the time boards, like they do have them, but they're not always the most accurate. And it's sometimes like when you're in the heat of the moment, it's really just hard to pay attention and try to read what it says on the board. But like I know, like the commentators, like when I watched the race after, like they were saying that I was blocking, and I think like that's the wrong term. I would say is that I was just kind of riding my own tempo, and I wasn't going hard, but I wasn't going easy. And I was just like looking at the other guys. I'm like, look, like my guy's up the road. Like if you guys want to go, like if you guys want to start chasing him, I'm just gonna sit on you guys. Or else you guys can just sit behind me, and we can do this pace like until the finish. So at no point like was I trying to block guys from coming around me. It's just that I think everyone at that point was so exhausted in the race. Like that's the longest race there has been all year long. So I think everyone was just kind of at their limit. Yeah.
The announcers were also confused too, because there was a moment there, and Todd kind of touched on it a second ago, where Magnus, you're off, and it looks like they're kind of bringing you back, and the announcers thought that was Quinn. And then they said, well, maybe the peloton thought that was Quinn. And then the other announcer like, well, no, they know who Quinn is. They're not going to lose track of him. And then the other announcer goes, well, we just did, so maybe they did. So like they're all confused on who's where at that point as well. And then they're not sure, why these guys aren't coming around you. So it was funny to watch, and people, if they haven't seen it, need to go and see that. But I was curious what what your take was in that point. You also touched on the distance. Does the distance help play to your guys' strength, having such a long race?
Yeah, I think the courses come out right after Worlds each year. So I saw them while I was in Innsbruck last year, and instantly just looking at the profile and the length and the technical nature, I got really excited about the course. And I think the longer course definitely makes it so a stronger person wins than it's easier for someone to get lucky and make something happen in a 100K race. But if you had an extra hour of racing and, on slow roads with lots of climbing, it's one thing that I think people overlooked with almost 2,700 meters of climbing. Like this thing was not flat. So it's a pretty hard day with a lot of kilojoules, and a lot of juniors can't do that.
How about the weather? Does that help you guys as well?
Yeah, I think a lot of kids quit when it starts to get cold and wet and they don't want to be out there and they can't stay focused. And I think myself and Magnus came from ski racing too. The cold and wet doesn't really bug us. And, really, I think we're definitely two of the strongest in the race, and the harder the conditions, the better.
Yeah, you could
You
see a
guys,
fun dynamic with you guys. I don't know if this is your personalities normally, but from the television, Quinn, you seem to be you're fairly calm and kind of eating until you attack, and then you're pretty animated and playing to the crowd and seem to have a pretty big personality there. And Magnus is just kind of dialed in and focused, and that balance both seems to just wear through the weather. Like it's not raining for you two, and it is everybody else. Is that sort of kind of how you guys normally approach it, or is that just coming through on the TV?
Yeah, it's we definitely have fun racing together and against each other. We've had some pretty funny conversations during the race. Probably, yeah. But yeah.
I think the biggest thing is just like keeping like a smile on your face the entire time. Is like I may like look super focused or serious like when I'm racing, but like I'm like when I'm in the move, I can talk to Quinn and it's like, dude, like we're actually like doing this right now, and both of us are just like kind of laughing because it's like we both like can't believe it. And it was like looking back at the race, like now it's like by far that's the most fun race I've ever done personally. Just because like with it being like with the fans and the crowd, like the challenging course and just the weather, I think it just all kind of added up to be like really challenging. But Quinn and I think we came prepared and we were up for the challenge, and we just we brought it to the race.
Yeah, definitely. And and a lot of that is, I mean, you guys don't mind the cold and so forth. And I think it's a good point for people to take forward too, is just, your attitude can really affect how you're going to approach that day. Right. I mean, if you're coming into it and like you're complaining about like, oh my God, it's cold. My hands are cold. It's this and that. I hate this weather. And now you're just focused on the weather and not on the race. And for you guys to be able to take it into like, yeah, whatever, it's cold, it's rainy, and you guys got to, I'm sure Billy was making sure you guys were eating out there. And people forget because they're so busy complaining about the weather, they don't remember they should be eating a little bit more because their energy is getting zapped out. Because it wasn't particularly a warm day either, right?
I don't
like
actually remember.
It was like 60s.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was like it's kind of weird though, because it was like when we first started, it was like pretty sunny. It was pretty nice, and then after like 20K in, we like could see this valley that we're riding through, and that's like where the first climb was, and you just like look out in the horizon, it's just like pitch black, and it's just like I just looked over to some of the other guys, and I'm just like, that's exactly right where we're going. And,
It's like the mothership coming in, right? You're like, oh man, here it is, man. It's gonna get bad.
But I just thought that just like added to the race. In all honesty, it makes it more fun when there's more kids that are suffering.
Yeah. Well, there became less kids there suffering, I think, because of that. It was getting down. The selections were happening all the way through, and you could just see it. I mean, it was just chunks would come off and chunks would come off, and it was a little bit reminiscent to me. And this will go. I'm dating myself now, and I remember watching the '89 World Championships that Greg LeMond won. And it was kind of cold and rainy like that, and and it really brings out the hard guys that can really just are on their game, and guys that forget to eat and are not paying attention. Man, that zaps you. Like I said, that distance of the race, and then you add in 60s and rain, where it's zapping your energy and your heat from that. So important to stay on top of it. And you guys just were like masterful. I mean, it was like you guys had 10 years experience under you out there. And how much interaction did you have? I mean, because you guys didn't back at the team car at all. So and you don't have radios, so you didn't kind of get a whole lot of information. Were you getting stuff when people went back to the cars, and who was going back for you guys to feed?
We didn't really need anyone to feed, even though it was 150K. We obviously had the feed zone at about 60K into the race, and then we also had another feed zone in the circuits. So we were able to get bottles there, but I think everyone just kind of stuffed their pockets with goos, waffles, rice cakes, and that is enough to kind of get us through the race. But when it comes down to like communication, it's like we've raced with each other and we train and obviously live together on the USA house in Sittard. And when it comes to racing, it's like we talk a little bit, but it mostly just comes down to like communication just without words. And it's like I can kind of read Quinn's body language. I think he has a little hard time reading mine, but
right, whatever.
No. But we all kind of know like when like when one of us starts to crack, and when one guy's struggling, when you need pull through, or I feel like it just has become like easier and easier as the season has progressed, and it's definitely just come down to the amount of time we spent together racing and living with each other.
So what's that like, racing and living with each other? Are you guys really competitive off the bike and in
not
training
at all.
with each other? I mean, what's explain to us what that looks like.
I'll let Quinn take this one.
I would say the best way to describe it would be anything you can make competitive, we do, and then you go full gas to try and win it. Whether that's making breakfast or like drinking coffees at a coffee shop, like it's a pretty highly competitive group we had this year.
But that's good. You guys are pushing each other, even if it's making coffee, man. There's a better way, right? So.
Yeah. Magnus will always inform you of a better way to do something.
Well, that's good to know. I mean, at least if you need to know a better way, you know you got your resource now. See.
All right. But I think like the group we had, obviously, everyone was super competitive, and I think it just made all of us super hungry and just made us all want to be better. And I think it just helped us like not settle for just like mediocre. And it's just that we were always pushing to be better than ourselves and the other guys. And that's ultimately what made the team so strong.
Yeah, definitely.
There's one point when Martinelli goes away and he's in between you guys, and he does bring the gap down just a little bit for not very long. And you don't really think he's going to catch Quinn, but maybe there's like a little chance there. And then Quinn, you kind of kick it up and gap that way out. Was there ever a chance or a concern from either one of you guys at that point when he's chasing that he might get up to Quinn?
For me, I was riding like a pretty controlled, like high tempo. Had been kind of worried at first that a small group would come up and I'd still have to win out of a sprint. So I never really fully committed and went full gas until like the last lap. And, it came down to 35 seconds or whatever, but the effort to bring that 25 seconds down, he was going as hard as he could, and I was still riding rather controlled. And I knew if it came within 20, I think I would have stepped on it and got a little bit more nervous, but I was pretty confident.
Yeah, and how about the turns when you on the circuits? I mean, how are the roads there as far as the pavement condition and being slippery, and any concerns there? Like, hey, if I got to really step on the gas, the last thing I want to do is step on the gas in one of these turns and lose 30 seconds, ending up in a barricade.
Yeah, it actually wasn't too slippery. I think it rains so much in Yorkshire that the roads stay pretty clean. I mean the typical slippery paint and whatever, but I don't know. I was having fun out there, just kind of sliding around and enjoying it. I don't know. We both are on like disc brake bikes and everything, and both can ride in the rain, so I don't think that was a concern.
You definitely look like you're having fun. Can you tell us like what's going through your head there as you're kind of playing to the crowd and really kind of taking that all in? Because that was fun to watch.
I mean, it's just insane, riding solo on a world championship circuit with that many guys out cheering. And, it was my last race as a junior, so I really wanted to have a good time. And, it had been a goal for over a year now, and I knew basically I would say with like 20K to go that I was gonna make it. So I just wanted to really make sure I was enjoying it, and then to see our director had flown out, so I saw him on the course, and the national team hotel was right on the course, so I saw everyone out watching, and my parents were there. I'd actually told them before the race where to be waiting with the flag, so I was pretty hyped to make that work out. And
Dude, that looks so pro. I mean, like you made that look so like come up, grab it across, like you've done it 100 times. It was amazing.
yeah, that was pretty cool. I had told my brother where to be before the start, so I
Yeah,
was happy I got to pull that off.
that takes the element of preparedness, I think, to the next level. When you're preparing the flag you're going to pick up before the finish line, to take across your win, that's definitely coming in with a significant level of confidence and preparedness. My level of preparedness was bring a spare jersey for the podium.
Yeah.
But no flags. Right? So,
Yeah.
but it's awesome that it's you had that confidence, but you also did, Quinn. You did Leadville like shortly before that, and kind of ended up crushing that. Maybe inadvertently, but you did it as kind of just a training session and wound up crushing it. I believe, right?
Yeah. Well, so 2 weeks before, Specialized reached out and they were launching the new Epic Hardtail there, and needed someone there to race with Howard basically. And I got approval from the coach, and had I think one ride on the bike before the race, drove up there, didn't really know what to expect. I start every race I do wanting to win, but I didn't know if that was reasonable. First climb, it's crazy hard, selection of all these tiny climbers, and I think you can see from the video at Worlds that I'm not a small climber, so it was definitely a hard day. I flatted 4 times. It was 10 minutes out the back, and then had a basically 6-hour solo chase. So after a ride like that, people are asking me questions after Worlds how hard it is to go solo for 30K, and the honest answer is nothing's nearly as hard as what I've ever done at Leadville. So I think that's a pretty good mental benchmark for this year and going into next year, just knowing what level I can push myself for that long.
Yeah,
And I,
definitely.
and I think I heard you in a different interview say that you were looking as you signed with Trek, which is amazing. That they're going to let you do some of those kind of events, and you're looking at maybe DK next year.
Yeah, I think I should be at Kansas. Hopefully, I don't know about Leadville. Leadville kind of conflicts with Bank Tour, but most likely I'll be at Kansas. Yeah.
And have you done any sort of real long, big gravel events like that before?
I've never done a gravel race. No. I think it'll be really fun. Actually, I'm looking forward to that. I think it'll definitely be a good challenge. And
Yo, Quinn, aero bars or no aero bars?
oh, for sure, aero bars.
Oh boy, oh boy.
But I've done 6 hours in a body paint skin suit before to go for a KOM. So
No, nothing's out of reach, man. It's all for the wins, man. If I have to be in a bodysuit in aero bars on a gravel race, I'm doing it, right?
yeah, marginal gains.
What about
Yeah,
you, Magnus? You
exactly.
think TK's in your future?
Oof. I've kind of I've thought about it, like talking to Quinn. I mean, it kind of depends on just how my schedule goes. A race I definitely want to do would be Belgian Waffle Ride, but it's also hard because that probably conflicts with some early spring races. But I would love to try to do some more gravel races. The only thing is Kansas 200 miles. So it's at that point, it's are you really racing anymore, or is it just surviving? But for sure, I definitely would if I was given the opportunity, I would for sure want to do it.
I think, well, I mean, I think you guys both have a lot of options ahead of you for sure on different events, and now it's just going to be a matter of basically scheduling and schedule overlaps, and it certainly seems a lot of pro teams are kind of branching even into and not exclusively road, but playing into that the gravel scene and things. So I think and obviously Magnus, you've done a number of gravel races. You did Tony's gravel race last year, I think it was, right? Last year in the spring.
2 years ago.
2 years
2
ago.
years.
Yeah, he was like 15 still, and he beat all these pros that came in,
Yeah.
and handily. It was fun to watch from the truck. I just rode in the front of the truck and watched him crush everybody. It was awesome.
Yeah, yeah. It's like, well, and both of you guys have even this season have come through with a variety of routes. You rode, which one did you ride? You rode a gravel one early. Was it Rapatista or one of those, Magnus? That you rode?
Rasputica, I think is how you pronounce it. Which
I'm
is
just
like
gonna make up shit, you know.
it's like
That's
some-
that's another hold up. That's another Magnus thing. Anytime at dinner you pronounce something wrong, he'll let you know.
Well, it's good because see, I'm an engineer, so I spell and
Yeah.
pronounce everything wrong. See,
Yeah, that's how I'm at. I can't read, so.
But it's like some crazy Russian word for like some like it's a certain type of pave that it's a Russian word for some type of pave, I think is like the story behind it. But yeah, so that race, it was like, I don't think there's like been a more miserable ride, race, whatever you like want to call it, that I've done than that. It was like pouring rain, 40 degrees. And then at one point it started snowing, and then it was hailing, and then it started raining some more. And then it started snowing again. It was just like, and sure, that was like, I think probably 60 or 80K, but like my hands and my feet were completely gone. Like my hands were so frozen I couldn't even brake anymore. So it's like that compared to Yorkshire. I'd take Yorkshire any day.
Yeah, I was gonna say you're well prepared. What about cross for you, Magnus? Are you looking at that anymore, or is that kind of in the rear view now?
No. So my first cross race will be next weekend at Charm City in Baltimore, and then after that I'll go to DCCX, Cincy, Pan Am's, and then do some more kind of New England races before I go off to nationals in Tacoma, Washington. And then I'm hoping to go to Europe after Christmas and try to stay over there until Cross Worlds, and then maybe do like a early kind of training block in Spain, maybe in between those blocks, and then the road season starts, of course.
Nice. So I think last time we talked to you, it was just before Cross Worlds, and then last year, and you got injured, so you didn't end up competing. So you're looking to kind of get that back this year?
Yeah. So obviously, I broke my collarbone 2 weeks before Cross Worlds last year, which was it was really hard for me to kind of accept that, but I was kind of just able to move on and then kind of refocus. When I look back at it, it was actually kind of good because it gave me some time to rest for the road season. But obviously, my shape going into the road season and like the first block I did in Europe, like I didn't really have like my best legs ever, but I think like the entire road season, I was just kind of progressively getting better. And then I was able to have like the best legs of my season at Worlds. And so I plan on just kind of taking the next couple of weeks pretty easy, using the form that like this awesome base that I've had from the road season, and like start working in the running and just having just fun on the bike.
Very cool.
And I was gonna say, so when you talk about that, because it delays you a bit. I mean, you wind up getting. Well, I broke my collarbone like only a couple weeks after you did, so I was in like this parallel world over there, right? And you wind up in this like couple of weeks where you're just like, kind of can't really do a whole lot, and the first week or two is the worst, and it gets better, but it kind of delays. You think that kind of helped play into like Worlds being end of September, and you just kind of keep coming up then, right? And Nationals wasn't great for you. I mean, it was a really good result by anybody's measure. But you got to kind of feel a little disappointed there. But which kind of your mindset? You're like, but I'm getting stronger, and Worlds is late. Is that kind of playing into your head at that point once you started going?
Yeah. So it's like coming into the season, I didn't have the form I wanted to, and it just kind of kept me hungry the entire time. And obviously having kind of a disappointing nationals, I didn't have very good legs there either. It just made me more hungry training and racing, and it just made me even more motivated, I would say, for Worlds. And I don't like to think about it like this, but I would take a bad nationals for an awesome Worlds any day.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's yeah. I mean, it's like you can get the biggest event. Yeah, you're like okay. I mean, in retrospect, it's always like yeah, okay. I mean, but it's always hard. I think it's hard when as competitors, right? I mean, anytime, or even like Quinn's fourth. You got fourth in the world's TT, right, Quinn, this year.
Yeah.
Which in any other year for almost anybody, you'd be like, crap, that's freaking awesome. Right. But then you turn it around and you win the world road race. I mean, so it's sort of like, oh, and by the way, I got fourth in the time trial.
Yeah. I mean, it's still a little disappointing. My goal had been to double up, but I think the road race is definitely the better one of the two to come away with. So can't be too upset.
I think Quinn can kind of agree with me about this, but it's like a lot of people say like winning is everything, and I want to say winning is everything because it really matters just like what's fun to you. And if winning is what is fun, I think that's definitely kind of what it should be. And obviously you can't get too down on yourself like if you don't necessarily win, but I think always having the winning mentality when you start a race, it makes you get the best out of yourself. And again, it just keeps you motivated to always want to win. And certainly it is a letdown when you don't come away with it, but I think it always just it isn't necessarily a bad thing also when you don't always meet these goals, because it just always makes you want to strive to be better.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, as competitors, I mean, when you enter an event, and sometimes wins can come in different forms for where you're at in your season. Like say you come off that injury and you're like, all right, I know I'm coming into this, but you know what? When I line up, I'm racing to win. And I may know I got some weaknesses coming in here, but nobody else knows that. And I always say like everybody else is lining up there with their own challenges to getting there too. And you can, and really just aiming for the win helps you to race aggressively and to say, hey, I deserve to be here and I'm going to try to win. I think it's an important aspect. And you guys coming into Worlds, coming off of the weeks you had leading up, you have this confidence. You can definitely line up there and say, we don't have to take anything from anybody. We will create the race for ourselves, and you did, and that's pretty huge. How you guys feeling for next year, man? Quinn, you're done with juniors now.
Yeah.
I
I
got a
think
contract.
my races are about to get a bit longer.
Yeah, tell us about that. Tell us about that jump going right into a big pro team, and I've heard your aspirations are really in the classics, which I think is awesome because I think that's the most fun to watch. But why is it that as a rider, like what about the classics and racing at that level is sort of where you're drawn to?
Well, coming from mountain bike racing, the technical skills and everything suits me, and normal road race can be kind of boring, but there's nothing boring about racing cobbles, and just the races themselves I think are much more exciting. I think the racers who do well there are typically the more interesting racers, and I think I don't know, just something about racing and in the Flanders that it's just so cool, and with the crowds and the roads and just how hard it is, and if anyone who wins a classic is always a pretty deserving winner. There's no one gets lucky and wins a Flanders. I mean, sure, there's luck involved, but it's always the best, strongest guys, and something about the technical nature and just always having to be focused really appeals to me rather than the more conservative stage racing approach.
Yeah, and certainly everybody shows up on those days, right? I mean, there's nobody's got anything to wait for or hold up for. I mean, it's a full on affair. And are you looking at the full slate of the big Queen Classics next year? Is that on your horizon?
For sure, not everything. I'll go to our team launch in October and talk a little bit more about it. But I think, it's focused on doing some of the semi classics and just having a nice build through the spring and try and make the Roubaix squad and have that be the main focus. I don't see myself racing Flanders yet. It's just too hard, but definitely a possibility to be at roubaix and races like Hem-Wilhelm and stuff, and some of the earlier stage races that build into that.
Sure, sure. And then, like picking up on what you said about, guys don't win those from getting lucky. And it reminded me of this a quote from, I believe it was Johan Museo, and he flatted at one point. I think it was in Paris-Roubaix, and it was, not that there's ever a good place to flat, but he flatted at kind of a critical moment, and he ended up not winning the race. And they were like, "Hey, was it because you had bad luck?" And his comment was, "Everybody has bad luck."
Yeah.
So like it's just everybody's gonna have some measure of bad luck, and it's but I thought it was really a classy statement to come forward and be like, it didn't cost me to race necessarily because everybody had bad luck at some point.
Yeah, and I think those guys like riders like Boonen and Cancellara and Sagan and just the strong classics racers, I think that's what bike racing is to me, and that's who I want to be.
Yeah, that's awesome because I think I agree with you 100%. Like as a fan, that's the racing that I like the best, and to see you as an American kid like fixated on that racing, I think that's really exciting. What's it mean to go to Trek in that equation for you?
I think Trek's a really good spot for that, just because they had Cancellara and they had Deccan, so they know how to handle those races, and now with like Mads and Stuyben, racing with the current world champ, that's gonna be pretty cool. And I think an American team, they'll really get behind my goals of eventually being one of those guys. And I think, just going to a team that maybe hasn't had the best success in the last couple of years gives a little bit more opportunity to a younger rider, and that really appealed to me. And I think it could be a place that I end up spending a lot of years and really developing and seeing where we can go and winning some big races with them.
Yeah, and I think it's a great build for you too. And I think you are recognizing the races get a lot longer, it's gonna be a lot harder, and recognizing things like Flanders might be a little too hard my first year, and stepping yourself in as opposed to like, here I'm jumping into this thing, and I'm done by like June, and I don't want to race my bike now. And taking those steps is really important. So
yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, and being an American company or team too, they like want a good team at California, so I'll be able to race that, and that's a home race for me. And a race like Kansas, be able to be here for our nationals, so it makes it a really good balance of a pretty heavy spring of everything that I want to do, hopefully, and then more of a relaxed summer, and then hit it back hard for the fall and try and ride well at Worlds next year.
Yeah, it's
Very
awesome.
cool.
Great.
So what has school been like coming back for you guys as you guys have come back on settled? Quinn, are you still in school too? I know.
I took some extra classes last year and graduated last December, so I haven't done anything in almost a year now.
So you're back. Magnus is back actually in school. So I guess maybe my question is for Magnus back to school, and for you, Quinn, just sort of back home. Like, how have you kind of been received by your family and friends and people who maybe don't really quite understand what you guys just did? Like, I mean, are there how does that work?
So for me, it's like everyone's super happy and like everyone congratulated me, but I don't quite think that people like they'll like say congratulations, but then they'll ask me like, so what exactly did you win, or like what exactly did you do? So I try like explain it obviously, and like I'll show them videos of the race or pictures. So I think that definitely helps them kind of understand what I do. I think obviously I think one of the teachers had actually put on the live stream in the middle of class. So I think a bunch of students got to watch the race, which definitely helped them understand it. But I think the whole like team tactics and that like Quinn winning the race and like why I'm so like why it still like is awesome for the US. I don't think they quite understand because cycling is very unique in that aspect that it is an individual sport, but at the same time it's really a team sport, but it's scored kind of separately, but there's all these kind of unique kind of things about cycling that I think can be hard for someone that is outside of um, the cycling community. But I think everyone was super happy, and obviously to see two guys from USA on a podium is super. It's unique, but I think everyone's just super proud.
Yeah, it's a hard thing to explain, isn't it? Like it's hard to show people who don't really know much about the sport how some of those dynamics work. I find myself talking in circles on it quite often with people who look at me funny. Quinn, are you around a lot of people who don't understand, or are you so entrenched in the sport at this point that sort of your community is a cycling community kind of exclusively at this point?
I'm not actually home yet, so it'll be cool to go back. I think I go on Wednesday, but right now I'm at my grandparents. I'm back on the East Coast, and it's definitely not the normal cycling community I'm used to. So like explaining to the family, friends, and everything what it is a little different. But I think it's cool, and it's cool to see people I know who didn't know what bike racing was, kind of getting back into it, and then later this week go home and see everyone in Durango. I think everyone will understand. It will be pretty fun to be home, and because in Durango it's not that special to come home as a having won a big race, because we got guys like Chris and Ned and Todd and all those guys who have been doing it for years. So it's a pretty cool place to go back to.
Okay, well, and as far as like, you're just making your way back there and, and people not necessarily knowing, but I think you've also given a lot of notoriety. And maybe it's from my perspective, right? But I look at it as like, it's so cool to be able to see the younger generation of you guys coming up and so many strong, like even looking further down the results to have your teammates in that front group, and that was a pretty select group even at the end, um, to see that much depth from USA Cycling. As USA Cycling as an organization struggles to kind of find itself now, kind of get its footing. Its membership has suffered. The whole where we've been the last 5 to 10 years has been really tough. And I don't know. I look at what you guys have accomplished there, and the whole U.S. team. I mean, Chloe Diger all the way through. Spectacular week, and I hope that USA Cycling is really going to capitalize and really put it forward for what you guys have done and get some press. And I've had a couple of juniors inquiring, and they're psyched, man, and
Yeah,
they're
yeah. I
inspired
think
by you guys, man. It's
I
like, they're
yeah.
like, I want that to be me, and they're 14 or 15 years old, and it's like, sweet, awesome, So,
I think that shows how important the development program is, and I hope for Magnus and my brother racing with them next year that they don't lose any more money. And I think people, the more they pay attention to us, the better USA Cycle will be able to pay attention and help us out, because the junior program and the U23 program are definitely the two most important programs, and it's kind of been neglected and forgotten for less important stuff. But I think us doing well really shows that they need to keep developing that, and I hope someone's paying attention finally and will step up and give Billy and these guys the support they need.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt that this is the biggest story in cycling right now in the U.S. is you guys in particular, but also what happened on the women's side as well. And I've heard both of you referred to as once in a generation riders, but there's freaking two of you, so I don't really see how that's possible. And you're of the same generation, so tell all of us old dudes here, like, what do we do to take what you guys are doing and what you can do on the bike to reach your peers to inspire them to want to be on the bike? Like how what should we be doing right now? Like how do we reach the kids that are your age?
I think I want bike racing to be like a fun, cool sport that guys do. I mean, you see who's the top athletes now, and it's guys like Sagan and Ella Philippe who have personality and who are having fun racing. I think the time of being a super strict, super skinny, like pro who's miserable, doesn't give good interviews, I think that time's done. And I think, if you can make the sport entertaining, more kids are going to get into it. Because if you see a guy like Sagan, doing wheelies and winning and making things interesting, that's going to do a lot more than a bold-faced guy just doing his job and going home.
Yeah, I think it's a great point there. Is at the end of the day, it's entertainment, and it needs to be entertaining, and we want to see personalities and all that stuff. And then when you guys watch races, I mean, you're referencing Peter Sagan, and back in the day with Mario Cipollini, if you watch some of those, and he was always doing something, right? He was entertaining, but he was also a hell of a bike racer.
Yeah, and another thing too, I think is important is to keep we do it well, me and Magnus together, but racing with like an entertaining race style and tactic, I think that's important. And you see a lot of people being too defensive and waiting, and maybe riding for a top 5. But for me, I'd way rather send it from a long ways out and take a big risk and go for the win than ever sit in and ride for just a podium.
All right, that's it, right there. That's the mic drop, Quinn, from the world champ. That's the mic drop. We're out, man. That was awesome. All right.
Yeah. No, it's awesome, you guys. Really, really cool. And I think everybody in the cycling community is super proud. I know one of Tony's teammates took one of Magnus's Strava segments, and he's got a screen capture he's going to save forever now. And,
oh yeah, he texted it to me the other day. He's like, "Check this out! I'm beating Magnus on the Strava segment." He's like, and he's not even the first one. I've had multiple texts, Magnus, from guys who are either just ahead of you or just behind you on the Strava segment since last week, sending them to me. Check this out! Check this out! Like, yep. Frame that shit.
That goes back to the biggest topic before the week before Worlds was Magnus got the Koppenberg what was it?
The camel. No, not the camel weight. The Kopberg.
Yeah, the Kopberg. That's how worried we were about Worlds. Is we were more focused on how to get the Kopberg AOM.
So right now I'm tied with Kitowski. So I don't know if it like really counts since we're tied, but I think Quinn and I will go back next year sometime and try to really take it.
What you got to do next time you do it is you gotta check the weather. You got to get that 80-degree day with a good like 20-25 mile an hour tailwind, and just line it up and know where the start line is, and you just crush the crap out of it.
I'm thinking race wheels and skim suit.
Yo, Quinn, when are you going for the white rim again? Because I just saw that now you're second.
Yeah, I'll be. I think that's going to be like. I'll be back out there in May when I get home for training before California.
Right.
All right.
Training's got to get intermixed with Strava segments.
Let me know if you need me to fly out there, so I can sit on the front for 90K again and set you up.
Big lead out.
Perfect. Yeah.
Big lead out. So. Well, great, you guys, man. Really, really inspiring stuff, and appreciate you guys carving a little time. And I know it's really super hectic. Everybody's on, everybody's calling you, and you got a lot ahead of you right now. But you guys are handling it really well. So, but super proud of everybody there. Man, it was cool, and it's great to be a bike racer right now for sure.
Cool. Yeah. Thank you guys.
All right, thanks a lot, guys. Good talking to you.
All right, take care. Catch you guys soon.